Welcome back to the Creating Synergy podcast. Today I have the great man Mark Hoffman-Davis on the show, the CEO of SYC and a exceptional golfer from my understanding as well. Welcome to the welcome to the show, Mark.
Thanks, Dan. It's great to be here.
Mark, you're doing some great work in the world of SYC in the human services space. But I wanted to, before we kick off in that world, I'd be keen to sort of go back and explore who is the man that's sitting in front of us right now. So what do we need to know about your earliest context to understand Mark and what led you to where you are today?
My earliest context, look, I guess when I was growing up, Dan, it was an interesting, right? I guess everyone's got little stories from their childhood.
Yeah.
My family and I moved to Australia from the US when I was 5. So that was something, I guess, unique and different. We moved from Virginia over to California, lived there for a couple of years, and then moved to Adelaide back in the mid-'80s. So it was a bit to get used to, a bit to adapt to from there. So I enjoyed it, though. I think Adelaide's been a great place to grow up, great place to raise my own family. And really enjoyed it. But yeah, I guess growing up, probably the most significant parts for me that I think helped sort of shape some of the ways I approach things and some of that tenacity and that sort of fight that I think I have in the way I approach work and the world in general was after my parents got divorced when I was 11. I remember it vividly because it's such a significant thing. You love your parents, you love your mum, you love your dad, and all of the, I'm the middle of 5 kids. So I've got a brother and 3 sisters, and it was just such a significant thing for us at the time. And I know a lot of people have same thing happen in their lives, but for us, we ended up all living with Dad, and he worked away for probably 5-6 days a week at least. Sometimes he'd be gone for a few weeks at a time. Yeah. And so that was a really interesting time for us, Dan, trying to reconcile how to grow up, how to try and be a child, but we were all in a house running the place, grabbing the money that Dad would leave for us for the shops, grabbing a trolley and going down and doing our grocery shopping and doing the washing and the dishes and making sure we got ourselves to school and had our own motivation and kept each other going in a way that would make sure we all got by and we're all okay. I mean, we still had mum there for things that we needed, but day to day, that's the life we lived. And I guess it meant that we had really, at an early stage in life, really high levels of responsibility. And it might seem, for an older teenager, like it's pretty straightforward stuff, but when you have to get yourself going and everything around your world relies on you to do it, or negotiating with your siblings, it was certainly something I thought, that sort of poised me for where I ended up heading, and that was in areas of responsibility pretty early on in my career.
Very good. I want to touch on your father for a moment, if you don't mind. I know there are some certain things that we can and can't talk about. You said to me in a previous conversation that your old man was in the CIA over in the US, and obviously there's things you can and can't talk about there. But being away all the time, I just want to learn a little bit about your father and who he was and the type of man. And you said that the 5 of you decided to go live with your dad. Why was that, and what was it about him that that kind of set you to be the person that you are, and what was the career in which he was pursuing that he was never around?
Yeah, so that's right. My dad was in the CIA when we lived in Virginia. That was his job, and it's probably to the extent I'll go into that right here. But we ended up, when he left there, we moved to San Jose in California, and he ended up working in tech, and he still does. So we were there for 2 years and then decided to move to Adelaide. And a lot of people ask me why, and it's a good question. I know my dad used to spend a bit of time in Adelaide when he was in the agency, just relaxing, and it was a great place, he thought, to raise a family. So I completely agree, and here we are. But
Was that to get away from it all? Or?
I think so. I think it was just, if you're on a trip or you're highly stressed, putting your feet up in the Barossa Valley for a week or two was I think the
drinking
way
some nice wines,
relax before they'd head home.
Was he high up in that world?
Look, I don't really know how far that went. I mean, he's talked about a bit about it and some really interesting stories. But as you'd appreciate, it's still a high level of confidence.
Yeah, no doubt. Does it put a lot of pressure and stress on him? And did you see that through him, or was he able to sort of filter that as he came back to the family?
I think he was able to compartmentalize it. I mean, my early memories of Dad, even before my parents divorced, were, I guess, things I've seen myself too, where, he was really present in the moment, but he was really tenacious and really hardworking. And, I could see him, coming home and being present around the dinner table and really interested in everything that was going on. And then after dinner would, either bury his head into something else or flake out and pass out on the couch because he was so tired.
Yeah.
And we all really looked up to Dad. I think he taught me a lot about, what it takes to work hard and succeed. I think I don't want to take anything away from my mother as well. We love her very much, but I think there was some things that drew us to the stability and the things we felt around my father. And I think we all wanted to stay together too. Like I said, I was in the middle of 5 kids and we didn't want to be broken up in this process as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. So you said that your father taught you how to work hard. What does that look like?
It starts with a big spreadsheet, Dan. As most good things do.
Nothing good happens unless it's on a spreadsheet.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember growing up and we wouldn't get anything given to us. Yeah. And if we wanted something, we had to earn it. And, whether that was a nicer pair of shoes than was our stock allowance that would, or a brand name piece of clothing that all our other mates were wearing. We had chores to do. Like I said, we had a household to run when Dad was away, but he would divide that up. We'd get paid an appropriate hourly rate for, how many minutes he thought the dishes might take or how many minutes the laundry might take. And it was open, transparent, it was fair. And then we'd get half of that given to us to spend on whatever we wanted. And then the rest of it was for us to buy our clothes and save and things like that. So early on.
So you're taught financial delegation, I guess, at a very young age. Yeah. It's not something that it's like I'm still trying to figure out how to spend my money now. You were taught at an extremely young age and how to manage it as well, which is...
Yeah, we did. We had separate accounts for all these things and that's how it worked. And, and then I guess that motivated me. I wanted to work hard. I wanted to do well. I was pretty good in school. I got good grades and ended up, skipping some time in school and working through it a bit quicker. And I was motivated to get a job as soon as I could. And I remember when I was 14, my dad wouldn't let me get a job. So I convinced him to let me repaint the whole house and, again, pay me by the minute, had a timesheet. He'd check it, he'd audit it and, check my work that it was a good enough standard. And we got through that and, I earned a fair bit of money before I turned 15 when I did get a job. But, I still remember, being able to do that and earn money. And I was really excited by it because I could, I think I got a pair of Reebok pumps at the time. Dan. It was,
what else would you buy?
Exactly. And then we, it was the irony of it was again one of those things that help you. I guess a childhood experience that happened right as that job was finished was my sister actually started a fire in her room, and that was a pretty traumatic.
How did she do that? Just playing with matches,
burning a candle, end of the bed. We woke up it was a Monday morning at about 6 o'clock, and we woke up and everything was pitch black. Couldn't see anything. So much smoke, and so my brother and I found each other and eventually got the fire put out. We went looking for the fire extinguisher where it always is, and it wasn't there. So we were running buckets up the stairs and got it out
wow.
because it had gone up the wall, off the ceiling. My sister wasn't there. But after it was out, we, neighbour comes running in to the front saying she'd call the fire. We found my sister downstairs clutching the fire extinguisher.
Oh,
Just in
really?
shock in the corner, poor thing. But after it was all done and everything was safe, it was good because my dad wasn't there. He was on a flight. It was Monday morning. He was off on his 5 or 6 day stint.
Yeah.
So we got ourselves ready for school and went off. But I remember thinking after that, the selfish part of me, God, shit, I get to paint the house again.
Do some gyp rocking while you're there. How old were you at that point? You were in Adelaide at that point?
Yeah, that was when I was 14.
Yeah.
As I said, I was really wanting to, get a job, earn money.
Yeah.
Had a bit of that fear of missing out a bit.
Yeah.
Because I was younger. I was probably a
'cause
year or
you
two
skipped.
younger than everybody around me, all my friends and social groups. And, they had more money or more things. And, I was always, I guess, part of my motivation there, Dan, was just trying to, keep up and fit in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd come from another country, younger, so I've always had that tendency to try and,
Fit in.
be in and amongst it somehow. I think when I was younger and earlier, I was a bit shyer, and that was a way for me to try and be part of it.
So with your father away so much, I mean, what influence did your mum have on you? I know I said you don't want to take anything away from her, but why not stay with her if your father was away so much?
Yeah, good question. I mean, she remarried, and
Okay.
her husband's lovely. We get along really well with him, but I guess it's hard to say. I mean, my older sister and older brother sort of led the charge with sort of nominating that they wanted to stay with Dad, and I think myself and my younger sister
Just fell in line, really. Yeah.
apart from him. And I think, my dad was a hard worker. He had a big house, and we knew he'd be able to give us the support and provide for us everything that we needed. Like I said, my mum was there to provide all the love and support as well. She was a musician. She taught music for decades of her life, so that was an influencing part for us. We often got involved in that, and she was there to help take us to things that we needed to go to from time to time.
So did you play?
Sorry?
Did you play anything?
I was in the Australian Youth Choir, so I was a singer.
Oh, there you go. A singer?
Yeah.
You got that nice bellowing voice. Can you do a little rendition for us now?
Not right now, but
you need a warm up.
No, look, I still enjoy singing. Not a lot of people know, but during COVID, I started going back into singing lessons.
Yeah,
yeah,
excellent.
But that was just
what type of music would you sing?
All sorts. A bit of Guns N' Roses, Matchbox 20.
Nice rock music. Good.
A little bit of Warrant. Until the 80s and 90s. So.
Yeah. Fabulous. We'll have to go out on a karaoke night one night. I don't sing at all. It's the worst thing. Like, your ears will bleed if you hear me sing. Anyway, so I think, like, in a previous discussion, you likened your growing up, like your family dynamics, I guess, to the Party of Five. If anyone remembers that TV show, talking about great 80s and 90s TV shows.
Yeah.
Where you did have to grow up quickly, and I think as you explained there, is like you're by yourself and had to grow up quickly. Is there any part of that you look back with nostalgia, or would you have preferred to have a parent around more often?
I think there's things I take away from it that were really valuable lessons, but we weren't really given a lot of a choice to really embrace our childhood. I think some of the things that taught me also test me still today.
Yep.
And, having or even, I guess, wanting to grow up quicker and be part of it with the people I was socializing with and around me. And, it was a necessity, but then it ended up spiraling itself. And you're right, we were like the Party of Five, and we made it work. It was all great. We had conversations and arrangements with our teachers and our principals about, if we were away, your brother or sister would write a note, you wouldn't write your own one, and all that sort of stuff. And so we got by that. I think there's a part of me that always looks back at it and think what it would have been like if you were able to just enjoy and embrace the childhood a bit more and take an easier pace at it. Because one of my tendencies, Dan, and anyone who knows me or has worked with me well will know a really fast-paced, really driven person who can probably push it a little bit hard sometimes.
Yeah. Is that what you think still tests you to this day?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. When you said these are the things that still test me today. The fact that you want to move quicker, you want to be in front, so to speak.
Yeah, it is. And for me, I tenacity is a big part of my approach to things, and has been throughout my career. I didn't study any formal qualifications or anything. I worked hard and learned a lot of things on the street, so to speak. But it was always I always had this firm belief that if I didn't know something, I could just make up with it by applying more effort and doing it harder or quicker than anyone else around me. And that, whilst that's helped me do a lot, I think I've had a lot of great achievements throughout my career. It can really challenge those around me, and that's something I still grapple with every day, trying to make sure I'm pushing and driving and delivering what I think we need to, especially for the work we're doing at SYC in the community, but also being aware enough of those around me that the impact that can have on them. And I don't get it right. I'm always looking for that point. Dan actually found it, but I'm always striving for trying to find a balance of that leadership. I guess, hopefully you'll be better for it, but I still have my good days and my not so good days, like we all do.
It's a difficult one. I'm often find myself in the same boat where I'm trying to move so quickly, and it actually works in the counter almost. It stops people from being productive because they feel overwhelmed or whatever it might be. So yeah, it is a genuine test every day. I think, I hear you on that one. Is there anything that you look back on in your childhood? I don't know, there's 5 kids. There's got to be something that you look back on that really makes you smile and kind of maybe hints at who you are today as well.
My childhood. Look, I think there's a lot of things. I really enjoyed working at McDonald's, and I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point. Yeah. But for me, it was always about basketball, and I think it's being able to spend time with my brother in particular down at the courts, and then translating that into playing and winning and winning championships.
Yeah.
He coached us for a couple seasons.
Who'd you play for?
Played for Norwood.
Oh, could have picked a good club, but no, that's all right. I won't hold that against you. No, great. My girls play basketball, so I'm right into it as well. It's such a great sport.
Yeah, I think we were always really active, and I know that even growing up in California, I mean, I know I was 5 when I left California, but I remember a lot about it. Just that, trying to be out there, be free, and be active. I was always riding my bike, getting beat up by different things I would hit because I was trying to do a bit too much for probably my ability at that age. But, I think they were probably the fondest times for me, was just being able to play and compete and enjoy time with friends.
Do you think, I ask this quite a bit because I honestly believe that sport, and particularly team sport, is fundamental to anyone's growth and development. I think the ability to work as a team, to set goals, to train, to improve, to ultimately have a goal at the end of the season to win the championship or be the best version of yourself or team that you can be. Working with multiple different personalities, like all the aspects that help us in life and in business. Do you echo that thought process that sport has helped you in your career today?
Yeah, definitely. I think it has, and for all the reasons you've just said. But and I remember when I was a young manager at McDonald's, and I used to recruit a lot of people from all the high schools around that would come and apply. But it was really clear how those, especially young people who play team sport, starting off on their first jobs, for example, can quite easily translate that into the workplace. And it's not just the actual hand-eye coordination that it takes to be quick and good at whatever it is you're doing, but that instilled discipline that, you got to listen to your coach.
Yeah, correct.
You've got to look after the people around you because, you're not doing this on your own. And I remember when
it's in
when
the
I'd
best
be
interest of the organisation or the
Yeah.
team as opposed to the individual. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I remember when we would be doing interviews there, I mean, most of the time we would be talking about what sports people played because that was such a key factor that them being able to translate into it being successful.
Yeah. No, I love it. So at 15 years old, you're in grade 12. This is my understanding. You're in grade 12. You're a straight A student, even though you've skipped a year. So 15-year-old in year 12. So what should we normally be 16, 17 in year 12, wouldn't you? And you're working 40 hours a week at McDonald's.
Yep.
Like at that stage of my life, I was still playing video games and kicking the footy around. Like, what made you so motivated to want to do it all?
Yeah. Again, I think it was trying to strive to catch up to some of the friends and those around me. My mates all had cars. I had no chance of getting a car. I wasn't old enough.
Yeah.
But I had nowhere near enough money. And
were you much smaller than everyone else as well?
I was not a big 15-year-old. But I was able to do it well. I mean, I didn't really take my school bag home. I didn't study at all. I just worked. When I was at school, I worked hard. If I had a free lesson, I did my homework. If I recess and lunch, I did my homework. During class, I'd do the assignments. As soon as I got what they were talking about, I just did the assignment.
Yeah.
Got it done, then I could go fill in another shift.
So where did you fit basketball in? Like basketball, my kids play basketball, and it's almost 3-4 times a week. It's heavy.
Yeah, by that stage, I wasn't
playing. Okay,
as competitive.
Okay.
We had a social team.
Oh, okay.
And so I was able to
just
play.
Shoot some
I think
hoops.
it was like Wednesday, Thursday nights or something.
Yeah.
And then if I had a shift, I'd just miss that one.
So you chose work in front of
of
your sport.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess with work, I was, I guess I was pretty good at it. I was working at McDonald's, so then started training other staff, and then started taking up some management shifts, and one thing led to another, and I was doing about 40 hours a week, and was able to manage it because I said I was able to keep up with the schoolwork quite easily by just working hard when I was there. I had an arrangement with the principal, so as long as I kept my grades up, I was able to skip a couple classes here and there to go do some more.
It's like you're in the negotiation at that age as well.
Well, look, I mean, the restaurant, the place I worked, they had. They really supported me doing more there. It was hard. They didn't always have enough people to fill in the shifts. So,
Which one did you work at?
In Rundle Mall.
So like the busiest one in
the East End
in Adelaide.
Right when it opened up. Yeah.
The one that there's lots of TikTok videos for some crazy people going in there.
We had all sorts of people.
I can imagine.
There. It was an eye-opening place, that's for sure.
So I just want to talk more about your schooling and McDonald's and how that all sort of entwines, because graduating with straight A's, because that's what I know, that's what you've told me that you did. You ended up graduating with straight A's, even with all that extra work that you were doing on the side at McDonald's. It generally leads down the university path, if that makes sense. But yet you chose to continue your career. You deferred university and you chose to continue your career at McDonald's. So in a world where there is a certain stigma for those who work at McDonald's, especially with the youth of today.
Yep.
What drove your decision to stay there and continue your career as opposed to going to university?
I didn't. I mean, you're right. I graduated with really high marks. I got into Adelaide Uni, deferred it for a year. I didn't really at that time decide that was the forever decision to follow a career at McDonald's and not go back and study. I just wanted to get a bit more money behind me. Like I said, I was trying to get a car.
Yeah.
And then I did. But then as soon as I had the car, I wanted a better one.
What was your first car?
It was a Toyota Celica.
And
the 1974.
Of course it was.
Beat up thing. Didn't, the front window didn't really stay up.
The Toyotas last forever, so.
Yeah. It was it was a good car. It was, but it did it. It did its job.
Yeah,
getting me there, because as soon as I got that car, I could work more. Because my bus would only get me to town at a certain time, so I couldn't take the earliest shift available.
Yeah, wow.
Because I got there 15 minutes too late. So as soon as I had that car, I was able to do even longer days, which was good.
You're a workhorse.
At the time. But no, I just deferred for 1 year at the time. And then when that happened, I was working a lot, like a heap. I was a manager, became a store manager about a year after that. And
Store manager, how old?
17.
Would be some sort of record.
I think it was at the time, actually. I'm not sure what it is now, but
Yeah,
yeah,
wow.
it definitely was at the time. I went through all their management training programs, and that was really good.
Was that Hamburger University? Is that?
Yeah, that's the name of it. We had we were given a HU T-shirt,
Yeah.
Hamburger University.
Yeah.
Got a certificate, a Bachelor of Hamburgerology. It was called. I think obviously just a gimmick certificate, but the actual training and leadership development that I had at McDonald's was really good. A lot of people, there's 6 of these, I guess, training academies around the world run, and the one I went to was in Sydney in Thornlea near their head office there. And some people, it took me about 15 months to pre-qualify and get through it all. Some people had been working for 10 years trying to do that, and I was there in a class of 75 people, and they were from all over the world.
Yeah, wow.
It was an amazing experience.
What I've heard about this Hamburger University. That's how I knew about it. What was it? What was the pivotal lessons that you learned from it? What did you get taught in there?
Yeah, so the leading up to it, it's the final of 4 different, I guess, weeks you do in training. You've got basic, intermediate, advanced, different things you go through. And all of the other ones prior to that were really about managing at McDonald's specifically. But the final one was more about leadership and didn't really have much of a McDonald's
flavor. General leadership.
Yeah.
And what was there any key things that you still hold to this day, or still see pop up in your leadership attributes?
I'm not sure. I think there was a lot I learned there, and I think it's probably all blended together with everything else I've done throughout my career. But I still remember being there and being really young and meeting a lot of great people who, like I said, were from all over the world, and being able to meet with the managing director and senior people at McDonald's. It just seemed so surreal for me at that stage of my life and my career.
What's the opportunities of moving up in the corporate ladder in that space here, especially here in Australia?
Good question. I mean, I didn't follow that path. I worked for a licensee.
Yeah.
And he had 3 stores, and I led one of those.
So it doesn't work as in like you get as high as you can in the store and then you can go into corporate.
I think you can. Some people have taken that pathway.
Okay.
But no, that's not.
Did you ever think about opening up your own?
It did cross my mind.
Yeah.
I was working at McDonald's up until I was about 20.
Yeah.
And certainly thought I had the capability.
Yeah.
I was from when I was 17, starting as that restaurant manager. I won the Restaurant of the Year award nationally 3 years running.
Wow.
Out of 700 stores.
Wow.
And the McDonald's Corporation certainly were, pretty impressed with what we were doing. But I ended up leaving when I was 20 and following a different path.
You would have seen some pretty interesting things. I know this is kind of stepping off the topic of business, but I'm just interested to hear some of the things that you would have seen on a Saturday night. I've gone into that Rundle Mall when I was out and about being a young larrikin, and it was trashed at times. And
it sure was.
It had, you walk into our offices now, they're beautiful, they're clean, they're respectful, but you've got people coming in to your premise and just trashing the place and disrespecting staff. And how did you manage that whirlwind?
Yeah, you're right. It was a challenging environment because, we had a lot of young people working for us, and depending on the time of day or time of night, the patronage could look like anything. And I guess that some of those experiences, carried that theme from, my younger days, where you're sort of thrust into a moment or a scenario or an incident where, you've got to step up and support people around you. You really have no choice because, the alternatives, probably looks much worse.
Yeah.
And we had a few like that. I mean, we used to joke we probably could have written an entire novel, Days of Our Lives series about the different things that happened there. But I remember one late night where we just had a big crowd come in, one of those youth nightclub things, just got out at midnight, and they just all came into McDonald's. And so they're all being a bit rowdy, and then, a couple other drunk lads, a bit older, come and start pushing them around and trying to cut in line because they were all quite, inebriated. But then this huge brawl broke out. There must have been 40 or so people involved in this, chairs flying across the restaurant, innocent customers trying to duck and weave and get out of the way. And I remember this because I was I think 15 still at the time. I hadn't moved into management yet, but we had a temp manager there helping us out for the night because someone was sick or something like that. And she freaked out and ran out the back, ran into the office, took the other staff with her, shut the door. And
really,
me and one other guy were just standing there, sort of a bit dumbfounded. Well, what do we do? And she stuck her head out and she goes, "Mark, I need you to close the store." And I'm thinking, I don't have any keys. I'm not sure how to do that, but this is getting completely out of hand. So, we had to find a way, improvise. I think I called out, "Let's take this outside," or something like that. But just whatever came to mind, and it eventually de-escalated, and people went out into the mall, and police arrived pretty quickly. And then I was able to shut the doors, and customers would say, "Oh, well, where's my food? I paid for my food." Me and that mate I was with, we just went and grabbed all the food, just took it out and just gave it to people. I didn't know whose was what, and that was it. But that was a pretty scary incident. We had a few others like that over time.
Yeah. Can you tell us about Happy Day? You knew I was going to ask.
Yeah,
that,
I did. Well, that was my first McHappy Day as the store manager. So Mark's name's now on the wall.
Yeah.
They have, restaurant manager. I was really proud of that. We had the water rats, that the celebrities from the TV series coming out because they help us sell the burgers.
I remember that show, Water.
They were just, I remember it was about 20 minutes before they were about to arrive. We're all pumped. It's busy. And I had one of my staff come up to me and say, "Mark, I can't get into the restroom. Someone's been in there for like 20 minutes. It's locked. I can't get in there to clean it. You might want to go check it out." So we've got in there, knocked on the door. It's a full closed door. It's not like a little cubicle thing. So, no response. So I've just grabbed a screwdriver, unlocked it, peered in, and we could clearly immediately see this young man was dead. He lost all colour. He was laying there on the floor. He had a needle hanging out of his arm, still holding it with his other hand. And it was just like, wow, this is 2:30, 3 o'clock, something in the afternoon on a Saturday in the middle of Rundle Mall. And we used to get a lot of people who would come into the restaurant. You could clearly see were drug users, but we'd never seen anything like that. And so we rang the paramedics. They came, rang my licensee because, like I said, I was a store manager. I was there on my own running this restaurant. And I remember his advice vividly was, "Mark, that's really terrible. Like, let's isolate it. Let's make sure that the paramedics and the police and the coroner can come and do their work, but don't stop trading." And so I don't know if you remember the story. You've got a Rundle Mall entrance, and then you've got backs into the food court. Yep. So we sort of isolated that and just kept trading from the front. And I just remember, wow, this was a lot to take in. That poor staff member who was with me had a lot of time off as a result of the trauma from that.
Don't often see someone who's you don't see a dead body, right? Especially at that age, and then having to sort of manage that. And would you like fries with that still? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was very surreal having to sort of just keep running a shift and keep running people and staff rocking up to clock on, and you're thinking, well, at the same time, the coroner's wanting to interview me on the other side of these bun crates that we've put up to block it all off.
How did you deal with that? How did you communicate with your staff in that moment?
It was really
At 17,
it was hard, and I think like I said, Dan, there's some of these moments where you realise, throughout my life or throughout my career, when you at an early age, I think I was starting to learn the notion of leadership, that there's something really hard that's happened here, and whether we saw it coming or not, this is what's happened. And so my approach was just to pull people aside and just be honest. Just tell them, hey, this is what's just happened. I want you to know. If you want to take some time, you can. If not, we're going to keep working here, but that's really up to you. And that's really all I did. And most people kept going. Some didn't. And, I guess that's how I've always approached it, is try and be someone who can, in those difficult moments, be a stable hand. And, you always have that pit in your stomach. It can be really hard, but I think because you feel that way, it's probably a good attribute of being a leader, that you care. But my approach to things, whether I'm delivering really good news or some pretty shitty news sometimes, is just to be as open and transparent as I can.
You've told 3 or 4 stories already in this chat, all of which, from helping your brother in your family house put out a fire, to jumping in and trying to break up a brawl of 40-odd people, to leading a team through what is a pretty traumatic event. It seems like leadership is something that just has come that naturally to you, where you can step up in the chaos and manage it with a calm head. Do you think that's the case? It was something that kind of came quite naturally, or do you think even over the years you're still trying to work it out?
That's a really good question. And I think, to me, the way it feels is probably different to how it might look to others. Because throughout my career, and when I left McDonald's, I went and worked for 17 years at a great place called Academy Services, and I'm sure we'll explore that. But there were a lot of these moments, and I think, for me, whether it's dealing with something like that, or the end of a major contract and having to share news like that, I've always got that pit in my stomach. It's always there.
It's sickening, isn't it?
And others go, wow, you handled that really well. It's great that you've got such a calm head about it. And I think it's not what it feels like, though. Like, you just feel like sometimes you're going to be sick. And so I'm not sure if it came naturally down. I think a lot of it was probably learnt through exposure and experiences. Because, I've certainly made my fair share of mistakes, or haven't executed well, or sort of crumbled a little bit in a moment when you look back at it. And, I'm my biggest critic when it comes to how I deal with things and perform in certain scenarios. And I think that, that's probably part of the way that the next time round you know how to handle it a little bit better. We talked about sport earlier. It's the same principle. You don't quite get it right. When you're trying to execute, an offensive play or whatever it might be, you learn from each of those things, and eventually your instincts adapt.
It seems, though, the world or the universe kind of opened up for you to move into leadership roles. I mean, if you're running stores at 15 and you've got this attitude at 15 to work 40 hours, and it seems as though, it does seem from the outside that you've got this natural born tendency. But I absolutely know what you mean, that leadership is not tough. It's quite a lonely space too, because the buck does stop with you. You then decide from McDonald's to move out into the world, the big wide world of corporate business. What sort of sparked on that move, given that you were relatively successful in where you were, and on top of that, not go back to university or go to university?
Yeah, so the first decision not to go to university happened before I left McDonald's. When I rose through the ranks, became from a manager to a store manager, and was quite successful. Shortly after my 18th birthday, I'd saved up enough and bought my first house and moved into that. So that was great.
Well done. 18 years old.
They were a bit cheaper back then.
Yeah, they were.
I feel for my kids, actually.
It's all relative, though.
It is. But so then I had a mortgage, and so I was
You're stuck.
I was paying the mortgage, and then tenaciously looking at what was next. And so that was when I was thinking about an investment house, and so that's why I knew that the work path was the one I wanted to take. I didn't really feel like at that point I was going to be in a headspace to go and study. So that's what I did. And then when I was 20, I was approached by someone I knew who was co-owner of a commercial cleaning and little facility services business. They were quite successful, and they had about 80 staff across a couple states. So I went there, had a chat with him. He knew, I guess he could see in me at a very young age that I had this tenacity about me and this drive, and I guess a level of intelligence and systems thinking that they might benefit from, because they were at that point where they needed to shift their approach to things rather than just the two of them running this like a small business. They needed something a bit more systemized. So I went there. It was a better salary. I had a company car, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then was able to launch into that career and learn a lot about different things, servicing customers, tendering, HR things, all of the different elements that I'd had a foundation for at McDonald's, but really just, I guess, took over the whole general management of it all quite early on. And then, then went along the ride. We ended up making quite a run out of it. We were quite successful. We worked hard. We worked long hours. We were pretty tenacious about what we were trying to achieve. And then, after I was there for a few years, the owners entrusted me with stepping up and running the whole place.
Which is great. And I think under your leadership, we saw the business go from 80-odd people to just over 2,000 people. Is that correct? Yeah,
that's what we had when I left. It was just over 2,000. And I was there for 17 years. So when I started, 80 staff, a couple states. We ended up having over 2,000 in every nook and cranny around the country.
Yeah, wow.
And state offices everywhere. I mean, a lot of that success was started and spurred on collectively.
No doubt.
But then I think of the 17 years I was there, I was given the opportunity to run the place. And again, I think that's at a young age something I felt really, really privileged to have. I was 24 when they let me take over. As general manager initially, then as CEO. I mean, obviously, it would have looked a bit odd.
Yeah,
having a 24-year-old CEO, but the owners decided to, take a little bit of a step back. And
had you done any study at this point, or had you gone and done extra schooling, or you just all learning on the job?
No, just learning it on the job through experiences. Little courses here and there, but trying to learn from people around me, learn from experiences. We were exposed to so many different industries and businesses and customers, and I just looked at everyone around me like they were a mentor or someone I could learn something from. And like I said earlier, if I didn't know, I would just push harder. I'd work longer or quicker or just apply more effort until we got by somehow. What
strategies did you put into to grow from that growth? It's quite substantial. I know it is over 17 years, but it is substantial growth still, and obviously making a huge impact on many people's lives.
Yeah.
Without the knowledge and the learnings from an academic point of view, where did you learn those strategies from?
It's a good question, because I think I in my career right now, we focus heavily on strategy and execution to make sure that we can have the best impact we possibly can.
Correct.
And in those early days, I think I didn't really know what I was doing.
I think any of us do.
I was just working with a few underlying principles, I guess, that I made sure everyone knew around me. I knew that everyone knew who worked for us, that everyone who was responsible for tendering or running contracts or administering the business. And we didn't really have a strategy, so we're going to go from here to here. Our approach was, let's get as much as we can all the time, every day, every week, every month. And we had
what's those underlying principles, though?
Well, the first one was people. So no matter what happened, I backed our people. I trusted them by default. Sometimes people would give you a reason not to, but the starting point was back your people and trust them and support them. And so I had this this fundamental understanding with everyone that no matter who joined Academy or who joined our team, they and us are going to be better for the experience. Now, might be a fun ride, it might not be easy, but we're all going to be better for that experience. And if they're here for 2 weeks, 2 years, or 20, we'll be a pretty good place, whether they come or go. And that often meant we would support people pursuing a career somewhere else because that was what was best for them. We're going to, if we found each other, we were going to do what was best for each other.
Great minds.
And so that worked. And we worked in a really high turnover sector, but we didn't have very high turnover at all. It was remarkably low. And I think that set us up well for success because we had that stability. We had people around us that knew how we worked, knew how I worked, knew how we made decisions, knew how we communicated that. And so it was actually quite easy, I think, to work through that. And I had a couple, just 3 rules when it came to getting business. We're going to be, no matter what we get, we need to be able to do, we know it was about quality, profitability, and sustainability. And I mean sustainability in terms of, being able to endure that contract, not in the environmental sense. Even though obviously that was important. And we
business growth, sustainability.
Yeah. So, I'd often be counselling and coaching people who might have won a job, but the scope was too low for us to do a really good job, and that's going to compromise our brand. It's going to compromise what we're about, or the price point might be somewhere where you make a lot of money, but someone else is going to come along and undercut it quite quickly, so you're not going to be able to sustain that. So it was about always trying to find that trifecta, and we were able to do that and win a lot of work, and even those that would, in the cleaning industry would change. We would see contracts change quite a lot, and we'd often see those contracts coming back because no matter what happened, if we lost a contract, we made sure to the very last day we gave them the best possible service we could, because I wanted people to know. If we won a job, I wanted people to know without being told that when they walked in the next day that there was a new contractor in the building.
Yeah, wow.
And I wanted the same thing to happen when we finished, to know that it was running perfectly until they changed to those guys.
It sounds like you brought the same philosophy from McDonald's, winning 3 of the best store of the year awards. That same philosophy, right? It seems as if though the customer service, the cleanliness of the store, the presentation, the way in which we talk and react, and not react, but the way in which we talk and communicate. Yep. It sounds as if though that's kind of what you brought into that role. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah. Certainly a lot of that mindset, that focus, that approach, and
because it's wonderful, it's customer-centric focused, right? Like
it is. It certainly is, and you've got to have that mindset. But for me, it was about really putting our people first, and making sure that they felt that support, so that they knew safe and trusted to go and really look after the customers, and was really driven by that, by the success of it, because that feeling you get when you'd win a new job, or the scoreboard you'd see by, having multiple new things start, or being able to hire more people, or I had a huge tendency, and I still do today, a leaning, a preference, a bias, if you like, to growing and promoting people from within. You're always going to need to hire some people from externally, and that does happen. But if someone has the characteristics and they're not quite there, as long as they're trying and they're applying themselves, I would prefer to coach them along the way and help see them grow and be better for that experience for being part of us.
I guess that contributes to the culture of the organisation that you said you'd be. If you're putting time and effort into people and helping them grow in their careers, then they're more likely to hang around, aren't they?
They certainly are, and they did. It was a great part of the culture we had. It was a great reason for the success. It had its challenges because people would want to grow more and they'd want to grow into other positions, but no one vacated other more senior roles. So my mantra to them was always, let's just keep going and trust me, in 2 years from now, we'll have positions that we don't have today, we don't even know about.
Yeah.
And that kept repeating itself. We kept being able to see it. So whether that's someone who started with me cleaning 20 hours a week, who ended up being my national operations manager, to lots of other examples and stories
absolutely.
like that.
There are some schools of thought, though, that the role of a CEO, the role of a CEO is to build a great team, right? And the hiring within Technique, whilst it's a fabulous opportunity for people growth and creates a great culture because it gives people the opportunity to grow, there is that sometimes that you just don't have the caliber of people that you need within the business as it's growing, right? Through the growth phases. I'm talking from the 80 to 100, from the 100 to 120, to 120 to 200. It's those growth phases that you see where the business is constantly evolving and the skill set of the current people might not be where you need it to be in order to get to the next step. Did you ever come across that situation, and what did you do in that scenario?
Yes, I did certainly come across that. I remember one period we had a 5-month window where we had 600 new people start.
Yeah, wow.
And that was massive. And we're talking the majority of it in states we were trying to establish our presence.
Yeah.
And boy, did we do it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But that's hard because the managers, the supervisors, the people you have are not ready for that.
No.
So I did recruit and promote and grow, but there's always there's a lag between needing that and having that and establishing the team, the understanding, the culture that you're looking for. And so throughout my career, and I guess it's probably a tendency I default back to too much, which I think is an issue, probably something I'll keep trying to work on all the time, is I just fill the gaps.
Yeah.
And I get my hands dirty. I get very hands-on. And that's great to see you through and a little need. I think as a CEO, you've really got to be an enabler, and I've taken the mindset that whatever it takes. But that can look and feel like to others that you're just taking over and you're maybe railroading them or pushing them aside a bit, and it's never my intent. It's always there to be providing practical support when you see those little gaps along the way. And that's got us through. I mean, especially at Academy where I had a staggered approach to growing teams around me that really knew deeply how I worked and I really knew deeply how they did. But the more and more you progress in your career, and I have, and moving to SYC as well, I realized these are things that I know in my mind I'm trying to do what's best for people and for the situation or for the impact we're trying to achieve. But the byproduct of that is you can actually be sending the wrong signal sometimes.
Yeah, it's a tough gig.
Can be.
Let's dive into that a little bit. What do you look for in people that you're looking to promote or grow, or you feel like they have the ability to rise up to the next level? Is it always about character as opposed to the actual knowledge in the role itself, or does it need to be a blend of both, in your opinion?
I think a blend of both is necessary, and it would depend on the role. But the character is the cornerstone piece. I think you can teach people a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But there's some traits that I always look for. Just being really comfortable, being really honest is one of them. And I think the thing I see more and more is some people who can, whether I've known them for a short time or a long time, if they're able to sit down and tell me that I'm doing something wrong, I know they're a pretty open, honest person, and then they're not giving me just lip service or telling me what they think I want to hear. But yeah, showing those traits, having a pragmatic mindset, being open-minded to listening, seeing different perspectives, being pragmatic in decision-making and not, too narrow in their focus. And, I guess something I learnt quite early on working for a licensee at McDonald's that was really, really tough on me. And I often used to think sometimes, shit, this is pretty unfair, this shit he's saying to me. But I would still think, I'm only going to hear this once, right? And so when I'm looking for people to grow, I'm looking for those around me who can really take on board what's being said. And you might need to support them through that understanding, but really listen and really take it in and be able to go and act on it. Because when I say something in a meeting or to a person in a conversation, or I'm giving someone advice or I'm coaching them through something, I mean what I'm saying, literally. And when someone's telling me something, I'm listening to that thinking what they're saying. I'm literally thinking it's a fact. Or
100%.
Rather than, and so when that doesn't happen, or people don't really listen and understand, or try to at least, it's not always going to sink in straight away.
Yeah, correct.
That can be a frustration for me. But
I'm with you on that. The words are the words for a reason, right? I often get
they are, and that's how I look at it. But I think I'm old enough and wise enough, at least to try to realize there's a lot of different perspectives.
Oh, without doubt.
Sometimes people will say things to impress a different thing than necessarily the way you and I might look at the world, Dan.
I think I might have said this example once before, but my wife will tell me that I never help around the house, and I take that word "never" literally.
Yep.
And I'm like, hang on a second, I just vacuumed the floors yesterday. What are you talking about?
Yep.
And it'll always be the thing in which, I need to work on as well, is not to take people so literal, but in the other sense, stop saying things that aren't correct.
I completely agree with that one.
So you are now the CEO of SYC, which I'd like us to start with the basics, actually. For those listening in who might not know much about SYC, can you give us a little bit of a background about what you guys do?
Sure. Our tagline at SYC is "So You Can." It really is embodies everything we're about. Our core purpose and everything we strive for is that we exist so everyone can succeed.
Yep.
And
it's been around for a while, though. We service the youth council.
Yeah. So it started as a youth agency in Adelaide here over 65 years ago.
Yep.
Working in supporting people who were experiencing or at risk of homelessness.
Yep.
Now we've diversified into a range of different ways that we help people in their lives through, build independence or, pursue opportunity or help their well-being in life. And so we've got 540 staff roughly around the country. We're operating in 4 states, delivering things from continued homelessness support. We're a community housing provider that runs our own housing models.
Great.
We're a large provider of employment services, which is an area that we help tens of thousands of people in across the country every year, trying to help them navigate their way into whatever goals they're looking for and ultimately sustained, meaningful employment.
Yep.
We're a registered training organisation as well that runs a raft of different accredited and non-accredited courses and training and things like that. And we work with people who are who are interacting with the justice system as well. We've got programs working with people pre and post release from prison or young people who might need to be doing some work, court ordered work as well. And we've got some work we do with the child protection system as well, helping run specialised residential care services for young people who have been under the guardianship of the minister or of the chief executive the department now.
Yep.
And we have been doing a lot of work for some time in disability support as well. Recently, we've been, realigning a bit of our strategy around some of these services. But it's a very broad, diverse service offering. And, especially in the current climate, the cost of living climate, the labour market, mental health crises you see across the country, it's something that is growing in need, and we're continuing to try and promote and advocate and grow the funding available to keep doing what we do, because it's we often would say to ourselves, the measure of our success is when we're not really needed anymore.
Yeah, correct.
And the reality of it is that there's just more and more.
It's going the other way, correct?
Yeah. I mean, one of the services we run at the moment is a statewide tenancy advice and advocacy service for people that might be at risk of having a tenancy issue, renters in homes. And that service, in an environment where we've got a vacancy rate in Adelaide of about 1%, and it's really hard for people. And people reaching out for our service down that probably have never had to before.
Yeah. How do they find out about you guys and what you do, and that there is even a business out there that can support us in this situation?
The different things that we do, there's different referral points, there's different ways we promote the service or make it available. A lot of agencies might refer into us as well. So we do a lot of work promoting it. But yeah, I guess if you don't need the service, you're probably not that aware of it, to be honest. But our job is to make sure that when people do, there's a way that they can get that connection quickly.
Yeah, great. So obviously, very purposeful work that you guys do. What drew you to the business, though? Like, to leave a role that you're in, and you'd grown and spent past 17 years to come over to SYC and essentially work under, it was Paul Edgington before, who was CEO, and joined the business under him, but then navigate your way through to CEO after he resigned. So what did all that look like?
Sure. I left Academy after 17 years with my head held very high and great regard for the organisation, the owners, Glenn and Paul, and all the people around the business. I guess it came to a point where I'd been there quite a long time, had a lot of success. Things were changing a little bit. The owners, who I have, like I said, a really high regard for, were probably getting more involved in it too. And I think, coming back into the business, probably looking at things a bit differently. And I thought, maybe this is the time to do something different, to try something else. I'd been a huge supporter for SYC for a long time. I knew Paul, and we'd sponsored and supported some of their housing initiatives and other fundraising events in the past. So when I saw an exec role came up, I thought this could be a great opportunity to get involved in something I'm really passionate about. I've always really cared about people and their journey, and being doing the best we can to make sure people are growing and progressing and making the most of the opportunities that they can have in life. And so I saw this as a way for me to do more of that. And when I spoke to Paul about it, it made me realise this was really hard work too. And I felt like it would be challenging and something I'd learn more from. A more diverse executive at Academy. It was, I was the CEO, and there was some great leaders around me, but it was a far narrower focus from the top. Yep. And I just thought this would be a great opportunity to broaden my own skills and make an impact in the community, and something I felt really strongly about. So I joined back in 2018, it's about 5.5 years ago now, and oversaw the employment services. We reshaped the landscape of exec responsibilities a bit over that time. Paul was a great leader, and we kept looking at the best way to do things. So I ended up looking after some of our RTO's operation and some other things like HR, payroll, IT.
everything they could throw at you.
Well, I like the diversity of it.
Yeah, that's right.
Coming from the role I had before, I did like the diversity. And
Yeah.
SYC has a plethora of great people and great leaders, and it was easy. I found it easy to do that job because there were so many great people leading those areas, and I was just trying to enable them as best as I could and help support them with things I thought could add value. And then, Paul pulled up stumps in about 2020, and that was the end of a remarkable period for his leadership at SYC. And I put my hat in the ring and was luckily entrusted with the role
in the middle of COVID.
That was an interesting one. I remember. So COVID was in, when did that kick off for us? Beginning of 2020, really when it started happening around here. So I think Paul finished at the end of 2020.
Okay.
And then I started as the CEO in January 21.
Yeah, okay. Navigating your way through even more complexity at a time.
Yes.
I'm curious about the weight of responsibility that comes with leading a company like SYC, especially with each decision. I mean, it has an impact so far and wide, and you've got to navigate those decisions with what's best for SYC and the people within it, your people-focused attitude and versus what's best for our community and customer.
Yep.
How do you manage the weight of that decision making in your role?
Dan, I think we always need to look at it with both perspectives. And in the private sector, you're wanting to treat your customers well because that's good for business. At SYC, for us, we need to make sure that we're running a good organisation so that we can invest more in what we want to do and that we're going to be here for the long term. But you're right, the services we're offering in the community, that's where we truly measure our impact. How many people we're supporting, the effect that we're having in relation to the outcomes that we're seeing in those people's lives. And so whenever we're, measuring our success, you've always got to look at it through that lens of how things look from terms of an impact and the financial and commercial parts of it too, because they have to go in sync. We're not for profit for a reason. We're not trying to generate surplus earnings, but we sort of need to in aggregate
in order to invest
so
back.
That we can keep investing and having more and more impact. And that means some parts of what we do generate a little bit more so we can keep investing it in other mission-based services and activities, like our youth centre that we have in the city, the Foundry. That provides a great service to young people in need to come and connect with us and get some support services around them that otherwise wouldn't be there if we weren't investing in it. And same with some of the housing initiatives that we've got and new community housing that we're building and leasing out to young people or other people that wouldn't be able to necessarily access housing or have the level of support around that that we provide as part of our model.
Very good. And my understanding is there's lots of change occurring in the industry at the moment, and you alluded to some changing of strategy just a second ago. I guess there's decisions you need to make as a CEO that are very challenging, and the disability sector has had some changes in that industry that you had to make a recent tough decision.
Yeah.
I'm just interested in how you led through that and what did that actually mean for you as an individual? I know it was a tough decision to. Actually, I'll let you explain.
Sure. So a little bit of the context. So we do a large number of things I described earlier, but part of that is disability support services. So we have NDIS funded programs that we've been running, delivering support work and some other things. And last year, in the markets we're operating, the labour market was changing, the housing market was changing. A lot of different aspects were not only having an impact on how many people we were working with and how we were working with them, but also on the funding available for the work we're doing. And so that was shifting quite a bit for us, and it was becoming harder and harder to sustain investing in all of the different areas that we were because of that sheer fact. The income, the revenue profile was changing. On top of that, there was a lot of different government reviews taking place. We deliver employment services, that was being reviewed. New National Skills Agreement, locally the Residential Tenancies Act, and I could probably list a dozen different reviews that we were keeping our eye on.
Yeah.
And a big one, a couple of big ones, was obviously the Disability Royal Commission and the NDIS review. So our model of providing NDIS service was delivering great outcomes for people. We were, we always really put people at the center of what we do. And, the team that were delivering that work was inspiring in how they were going about supporting people in need in the community.
Yeah.
But what we found is we were struggling to make that work commercially.
Mm-hmm.
And so we tried a number of different things. We worked hard as an executive and as a business to change the way that was working for us, but maintain our model so that we were able to help continue to provide that level of support. And then while we were doing that, we were keeping an eye on these reviews that were coming out. And I'm not here to pass sort of political commentary on it, but what I did do is we digested the narrative that we could see happening. We can see a lot of disability service providers across the country in a predicament when it comes to being able to fund the work they're doing. We were in the same position for that part of what we were doing, and it was starting to compromise our ability to invest in more of those mission-based things. So when we looked at the NDIS review, we looked at the signals that were coming from that, and I appreciate the government will respond to it in due course. We felt that probably reached a juncture where we felt the impact we could have in the community, because that really is the number one commitment in our strategy, is around impact. Would be greater if we refocus those efforts, attention and money that we were expending to deliver that with a core focus on some of the other parts that we were deeply embedded in: employment, training, housing, work with young people in the justice system. We have a social enterprise that we run in Mount Gambier, and we want to do a lot more of those award-winning operations that are giving dozens and hundreds of people employment opportunities.
Absolutely.
So we knew there were some great providers out there that could continue the work and continue the support. So it was a really tough decision to reach, because I'm really passionate about all the things that we do, all the work all of our team members do, and in particular those that were directly delivering that service were, it's a level of support they provide. They're really closely connected to each of those participants. And so we made that decision earlier this year. It was a really tough one, like I said, but I knew deep down that when we reconcile why we were doing that, it was because of that strategy to have greater impact. And I knew we were not going to leave these participants in a situation where they weren't going to have continuity of support. So once that decision was reached, I personally spoke with every single person impacted. I knew, there's other critical moments throughout my career. This is a time where, you don't delegate things like that. You need to be at the front and center and take ownership for what's going on. And that was really difficult, but my commitment was to try and support every single one of those staff and every single one of those participants through the transition as best we could. And that was always the intent. And I always look back at these things and think we could have done it better. And I think I'll always think that, actually, when I go and debrief on how we've gone about something. But
you played the cards you dealt at the time.
We did do, we had a core focus on trying to make sure every participant was transitioned to another provider or another support coordinator in a way that was considered, and was obviously providing them with that level of continuity and safeguarding them. And, with the staff involved, we kept working with them as best we could to see where they could realign in other positions or with other providers. And I know a lot of them have already been, we're very quickly successful.
Which is great.
And in the current labour market, that's,
Yeah,
there's shortages
everywhere.
everywhere.
Correct.
So that was a tough decision, but it made strategic sense for the greater good and the greater impact that we're trying to achieve.
And I guess that's the thing, though, isn't it? We are in a role as a CE. You are always having to make a decision that might be the unpopular one.
Yeah.
Right. It might be the one where you're the feeling of letting people down.
Yeah.
And all the above. There's this analogy that I heard that has stuck with me, and it's the laws of nature, right? Whereas a plant might have a leaf or a stem of that's dying and starting to turn brown, and so in order to keep that alive, the plant will feed 80% of the water that it gets to help try to pick that back up. But then what that does is it actually stops giving the rest of the water to the rest of the plant, and then that starts to wilter. And so this is where the whole pruning comes in, and in that world. Whereas if you can break that branch off quite early, the rest of the plant is there and it will receive that water and it will receive the benefit and it'll flourish more so. And so I guess what that's saying is, if you put your attention into something that is not sustainable, you're potentially putting the rest of the business and the purpose and everything else at risk as well.
Absolutely.
And it's these are the decisions that leadership need to make. And it's often, we talk about different perspectives. It's like, well, we need to do what's best in order to have the most impact for our community and customer. And we got to sometimes cut off that limb. So
absolutely. I think that, and it's a great way of describing the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you have an area that needs more attention, we were focusing a lot of not only financial resources but time and effort into areas where we're now able to divert that in places that we can employ more people in those spaces to help.
Correct.
More in ways that, like I said, really underscoring the mission and the purpose of the whole organisation.
Yep. So I want to keep talking about change, given that's the world that I live and breathe in, and you are. We've obviously known each other for a while. We've done some work with you guys, and recently you took the team at SYC through what is probably the most highly sought after program, which is our SynergyIQ's Reframe Change.
Yep.
And you've mentioned to me numerous times, and I really appreciate your feedback on this, that it's had significant impact on you and the team. Can you just dive in with me some of the things that you think about now when you go through change and what you learned through the Reframing Change course that you did with us, and how that shaped your view on change, or changed your view on how we as organisations can go through change?
Absolutely. And you're right, Dan, it was easy for me to pick the phone up to you after these sessions and just thank you and report back tremendous feedback, because that's what we saw. That's what our teams were telling us. And I'm working through an approach to change, an approach to thinking that's really resonating with our team. Even coming in from a meeting yesterday where literally people are using the tool, BCIP tools, and other things, and it's fantastic. But I guess if I just start back with why we were even seeking something like this out, was when we had a meeting with our exec met last year, and we had one of your team come in and help talk to us about some of the things we were seeing with our strategy and how that was translating across the organisation. And we knew amongst our exec team we had a pretty good alignment when it comes to the core understanding of the purpose. Our strategy is embedded with very specific commitments around our priority areas, and we like that. And we were very clear on what we needed to be doing to be achieving those things. But what we realised is we were probably losing it in translation a little bit amongst the other people, our leaders, our enablers, and people across the organisation that we needed on board, or we needed literally being the ones implementing this stuff. So we knew we needed to do something about that, and that's when we spoke about the reframing change process. And I think it's just resonated so well with our team because it makes sense. Like, we have a logic and a theory and evidence base for the work that we do, and the fact that the program's underpinned by that was such a great foundational point to kick off with the teams. I think for me, it's helped our team understand each other's perspectives more. I think some of the language used in the program around understanding different street corners, and that's been something that's been really well received. Even the leadership shadow and what people are putting out there is something I can see everyone reflecting on a lot. We didn't get anyone coming back not really giving tremendous positive feedback about it. And even one key part of the program, Dan, that I think really resonated with me and the executive team was around empowerment. And it's so obvious when Kylie put it out there like this, but it's something that we grappled with for a long time. And like I said earlier, I can have a tendency to get in the weeds a bit too much and maybe take too long to get back out of it. And I'm constantly working on that. Everyone else will tell you I'm getting it wrong most of the time, but I try. But the thing is, so we're talking about trust in people and how people can feel empowered or trusted or authorized or delegated to go and do their work. And I guess the way we looked at that is, we've got a delegation of authority policy. It says they are empowered, so therefore they must be,
Yep.
But then what happens with that? Do they get it right? Are they delivering really what you're looking for? Did they understand it? And I remember one of the biggest takeaways for me from it was that notion that empowerment is not about you giving someone that trust necessarily. It's obviously an ingredient, but it's about the likelihood that person is going to be able to do it right. And
it's creating the conditions for success.
Exactly. And knowing that, they've got the expectation clear. They know what the boundaries are. They know what, all that context and everything else that they need to know to be able to use what you're giving them to be able to deliver it. And it's not just about, those other things I talked about. And so for me, that's what we've been really focusing on amongst a lot of the other tools. I think the tools and language, we were looking for a common language instead of tools that the whole organization could sort of get behind. And they've certainly done that. But as an exec, that understanding that we can't just delegate things like this, but we've got to be really clear on what those expectations and what those boundaries are too. Because we think we know what these commitments mean and how they translate, but everyone's got a different perspective. Everyone's looking at it from their street corner, and it was enlightening.
That's amazing to hear. Do you feel like it's, and I guess in the conversations that you've had with your team, do you feel like this is not just a business thing? This is something that you actually take into your real life and family life and friendships and all the above. And when you can start thinking about the different mental models and perspectives that people bring into the world,
Absolutely.
It helps reframe in your own head how you react or communicate something.
It definitely does, and we talk about that quite a lot, and people use a lot of examples in their personal lives as to how they've broadened a perspective or been able to help understand a bit more about their partner or their wife or their kids, creating some of those environments where you're allowing some of the chemicals and other things that help those sorts of feelings that you're trying to drive. I think it's definitely, I think that's the a real key attribute of successful programs is that they are much broader than just the work you're doing in front of you in your day-to-day career.
Which is great. Thank you for that. We're onto something with this reframe change, I think.
Absolutely are. I think we're looking forward to doing it with more of our team members in some of the other states and extending that to more and more of our management and leaders. So it's been wonderful. Really good.
Brilliant. The world of change continues though. And, the future of work, the role of technology, like there's immense interest in these areas, obviously today. How do you foresee these intersections within the health and human services and social services sector, and what's SYC doing in preparedness for that? There's AI coming. There's everything coming our way. How are you setting yourself up for the change that you're about to embark on?
We've seen that change already start. I mean, it's been happening for some time.
Correct.
The advance of technology and how that translates into human services is something that the government and sector have been something that's been evolving. We can see it in employment services. There's more and more digital servicing of people who are looking to get support into work. But what we're also seeing is that the impact of the overuse of technology it can risk leaving people behind, especially when you reach a juncture where you really need some human intervention and you need a human response to a human. It is a human service after all.
Correct.
You can't completely digitize it. So digitization of things can make it more efficient, more productive. It might, what I think the intention is to be able to target the scarce resources we have to invest in these things to those most in need. And that's really where I think the intention of government policy is going.
Yep.
And that'll take time for it to settle and to find its way. But we can see those especially in the current market, current labour market, housing market, and then the mental health issues we see around the country. Those in need are in a state of vulnerability and a deeper need than we've probably seen for a very long time. Some of the work that we need to do to coach, counsel, and support people towards their goals, you've got to have that human element. So I guess summarising all that down, I think technology is going to be able to help us target that support and assistance in a more intensive way with those who need it most.
It's an interesting thought process. I haven't thought about it in a way. I mean, you think technology is an enabler, but there's a lot of people, and I dare say you would see many of these people who don't really even know how to use technology and might not even have a mobile phone, right? There was a customer that I spoke to the other day in the aged care sector who said to me that at least 50 to 100 people out of their 1,000, 2,000 staff don't have a mobile phone. So we can't even connect with them. Yeah. Because they're just frontline, a lot of them from overseas, and it's a different world. So when we talk about technology enabling, is it a case of, well, catch up or you're left behind? Or how do we navigate that? It's such a fine line.
You're right. And to be able to access government services and supports and social security, all those things, you need your MyGov account, you need technology, you need.
I know a lot about technology, and I struggle to set up a MyGov account. It's difficult.
That's another topic in itself. But you're right. I mean, look, digital literacy is just so important, and the problem we have is there are people that are left behind by it, and that's why we need that balance of human services delivered by humans available to those that are vulnerable and need it. And
if we go the all guns blazing approach, we're going to find ourselves in more trouble, aren't we?
Yeah, and so digital literacy training and things like that is a huge part of what we do, whether that's specifically in digital literacy training courses or just in the support we're providing people that
Yeah.
might not necessarily have it, or even access, and they might have digital literacy skills, but not have enough to cover the phone,
Yeah.
or the data is a big part of it too.
Mm.
So there's a whole raft of ways we try and support people with that. But like I said, I think the digital component, there's a huge part of digital in what we do, and we can see a lot of people who need a little bit of support or a little bit of access to things can be supported by digital systems to do it. But we need that human intervention at the right moments, in the right ways, with those that need it the most, those that have experienced trauma or that are in a vulnerable position that an app's not going to necessarily help them work through.
Yeah, correct. What excites you the most about what you guys are working on at SYC? I think there's so much in what you're doing.
Yeah.
But if we're going to peek over the horizon a little bit, what's coming in that space?
We've got some real great opportunities to further expand a lot of the employment and training and other things that we're doing. We've just opened a wonderful training hub and space in the north at Elizabeth. It's a fabulous facility.
So when you talk about training, what specifically are we talking about?
We do a range of training. So we have some business admin courses. We do construction pathways training. That's a really exciting program. We actually work in partnership with SAHA.
So SA Housing Authority?
Yes. Sorry. Like most sectors,
yeah.
So the authority will give us a couple of homes every year, and we'll train young people in construction pathways in those homes while we're flipping the house and making it a more amenable place for one of their tenants to live in, and then handing it back to them at the end of it.
Yeah, great.
So that's wonderful. We're also running a lot of other programs out there. The most recent ones we've just added to the scope are retail and hospitality. We've got some amazing coffee machines out there. If you come check it out sometime. And some young people that are learning how to make a pretty good coffee, might say. So that's really exciting. There's a housing development that we've been investing in that is hopefully going to get the first shovel in the ground really soon.
Yeah, great.
So more of our housing model to offer affordable housing to young people or other vulnerable cohorts who perhaps aren't able to access housing. It's a huge problem. We've all got to play our part, and we're going to look for more and more of those projects along the way. So there's a lot of different things that I'm sure we'll be promoting in the work that we're doing throughout the year.
Watch this space.
Yeah. Keep following us on socials, as the team constantly are trying to share those good news stories.
Great. So you and I have known each other for a while, and I've always admired your capacity, I guess, for self-reflection. And it's not something that everyone finds easy. I think you've sat here numerous times in this conversation and said, I'm getting better, I'm learning, I'm not perfect at this, and I'm still trying to. And you're not just saying that. I know you're not just saying that as a way of making an excuse of the way in which you might go about business. You actually genuinely want to learn and improve and continue to improve your leadership skills and character, right? Which is already. Is this going back to the innate quality of your leadership? I said, is leadership something you're born with? Is this self-reflection something that you were born with, or is it something that you've had to learn as well and reflect on? Have you gone through the school of hard knocks that's made you look at yourself that way, or is it just something you've done from a young age?
I think I'm genuinely trying to do the best I can, and really critical of myself when it comes to that attribute. I don't shy away from self-reflection. I think it's something that just inherently happens immediately after, I've given something a go. I have, I think a tendency to maybe because I've learnt things gradually on the street in business, so to speak, and experiences have been what have guided me. I guess there's been a part of me, Dan, all along the way that still sits there that, my sort of just faking this until I make it
Yeah.
on the way. You know, we've all
It's the
heard that
imposter
before,
syndrome. Yeah.
but you know, I can see it in people around me. I can see when they feel good about what we're doing and feel supported and feel trusted and feel like they're getting I'm able to help provide some value and some leadership. And I can see it a mile away when I'm getting that wrong. And, you know, just the look in their eye, or, you know, or I say something and I realize I could have done that a heap better. And, you know, I think it's so important. I mean, I'm not saying that in a way that beats myself up to the point that I don't feel positive about what I'm doing and the leadership I'm providing and the people I'm working with that are getting value out of that and the impact we're having in the community. But I think having the right dose of it and the right balance is important. I guess it's just an attribute that I'll always have.
If there's something that I can take away from interviewing hundreds of leaders and CEOs on this podcast, it is probably one of the traits that I see come through more often than not is their ability to self-reflect. And I think what I have seen quite often is there's this sort of humbleness from all leaders, or the ones in which that I admire anyway. There's this humbleness of, you know what, maybe I'm not the best person at this. You know, it is the self-doubt that helps drive the improvement, right? Because it's like, maybe I'm not the best at it, but I sure as hell want to give it the best go, you know? And I think that's what I just heard in your answer again. And it kind of replicates the same that I hear from many other great leaders who have come on this show. It is always about learning. And if you can't self-reflect, then, you know, you're almost going to stumble more often than not. Whereas the ability to look at oneself, hold a mirror up and go, hang on, how do I do this better? And how do I help more people? Or how does this help more people if I do this better is critical in any role of a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree.
Rightio. Now, I'm conscious of time, but I am curious, if you weren't in the role of a CEO at SYC right now, what would you be doing?
Well, that would depend on my ability. I know what I'd like to be doing.
Playing
I
golf.
I love golf. I'd love to be playing golf with my wife. Who's
on the PGA Tour or something? Is that what
something like that? That'd be awesome. Yeah. Just being able to every day immerse yourself in something you enjoy like that.
Yeah.
I got into it during COVID, so it hasn't always been a huge part of my life. But yeah, we play at least once or twice a week now.
Yeah, it's great. What does the future look like for you then?
We've got a big agenda at SYC, big strategy to deliver. Like I said, I've got some things we're all working on to really enhance and expand the impact we're having with, you know, employment, training, housing, and you know that's what drives me in my career. Personally, I've got my wife and I have a blended family of 4 kids that we love dearly, and we're just really passionate about seeing them do the best they can. They're all very different, very unique. So just making the most of that stage of our lives with them. And I'd love to drop the handicap a couple more shots.
What are you playing on?
14 at the moment.
Jesus, I don't even have one. There you go. Well done. If you could encapsulate your entire journey to date with a single lesson or a message, what would that be?
A single lesson or a message? Look, give it a go. I mean, I looked at things a lot, and throughout my journey and throughout my career that looked pretty hard and pretty confronting, but you've got to try. And it's never going to look the best first time round, but just give things a go. Back yourself and try.
Yeah, I love it. Rightio, quick fire questions.
Yep.
We're big readers here, so I always ask this question. I love the world of continuously improving my own knowledge source. So what are you reading right now?
I'm going to disappoint you with a boring answer. I'm not in the middle of a book at the moment because I've been reading so many government reviews and tenders.
Yeah, there's a fair bit going on in your world.
Been, like I said, immersed, probably a bit too hands-on on some of those things for my liking, but that's what we've been doing.
All right. Well, if you could recommend a book, a self-development book of some sort, what would that book be?
I really like this book because it's helped not only me but the executive in the way we shared understanding and learning, and they all ended up reading it after I gave them a copy. Was the Simon Sinek book, Start with Why?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, 100%, and I think it helps that alignment.
Oh, well, it's all about purpose, right?
It really is,
and which is exactly what you guys are at SYC. It's a purpose-led business, and it's not only for non-for-profits; it's for everyone actually.
Absolutely.
It's a fundamental for all humans. What's one lesson that's taken you the longest to learn?
I'm still learning it, but probably don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, I agree, and there's somewhat I disagree in a way. I think.
Yeah. I guess it's contextual for me.
Correct. Yeah.
I do. It's probably about the moments.
Yeah.
More so than the care.
Yeah, because like I think people use that line, "Don't sweat the small stuff," but then it's like if you want to give the greatest customer experience, then we kind of have to, right?
Yeah, and the whole thing you focus on the little things.
Correct. Exactly.
But for me, it's probably more contextual with the moments and the interactions with people.
Let it go
and thinking what is the best way to approach this.
Yeah. Okay. If you could have a coffee with a current or historical figure, who would that be?
I've got so many people that would be interested, but I think in the moment right now, I'd love to go and meet Tiger Woods. I've talked to a lot of great leaders and politicians in my time, but I think he'd be a really interesting character. Not only because I'm so mad about golf at the moment, but that tenacity and perspective to, go through so much adversity and stay at the top for so long. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Well, it's funny you said Tiger Woods in response to my sort of challenge to you back on don't sweat the small stuff. I think Tiger Woods was renowned for sweating the small stuff in the fact that his whole philosophy was the 1%ers is what made him the world champion time and time again, as opposed to any sort of big idea that or any he had to fix his swing by 1 or 2 degrees, in order to hit the ball at a slightly different angle, and that he would work on that, change his swing, right? Just like those little things, and so it's funny that you brought that up, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good observation, and like I said, it's probably maybe in my own mind what I mean by it more than probably what the comment is. But you're right, Tiger Woods does. My wife and I were just talking about this last night that he, before a tournament, he will hit 1,000 balls. Or have 1,000 contacts with a ball every day. Yeah, and that's not necessarily 1,000 on the range. 300 there. Yeah. 300 chips, 600 putts. Yeah. But that's tenacity.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Focus.
So, what's some of the best advice you've ever received?
Just to be present in the moment.
Yeah,
I used to struggle with that a lot when I was in the earlier stages of my career. Still do sometimes. Just multitasking, taking on a million things, listening to someone, but actually looking like you're doing, or literally be doing something else in front of them. But giving people time, just being present with them. What's
one habit that holds you back the most?
Getting stuck in the weeds too much sometimes.
Yeah,
I think it's got its time and purpose, but I think I take a little bit too long to realize when it's time to get back out of it.
What's your biggest pet peeve, like something that pisses you off the most?
In a work sense, it's people over paraphrasing in meetings and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and that's going to
give us an example.
Really annoying. When we've got someone's given an opinion, and we go, yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, let's go and do that, and then 4 other people will say the exact same thing in their own way for the next 10 minutes. Yeah. I'm sure some people will laugh at that.
Yeah, 100%.
I work with, but that is.
If you could pay someone to do one of your chores for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I used to do this when I was younger, when we were growing up in our party of 5, because I was working so much at McDonald's. I was getting my money from my dad for the chores we had to do on the spreadsheet, but I'd cross-subsidize that and pay it to my little sisters to go and do the dishes and the laundry for
Oh,
me.
there
So
you go.
that worked quite well for me back in the day.
Well done.
I was able to use that to have a bit more leisure time. So
Yeah.
that's probably what I would do. Some of these household chores.
Well, you'd made the extra money off painting, so you could you could do that. What's one word that you absolutely hate?
At the moment, it's pivot.
Yeah,
I
reckon that's probably our top. That'd be our top one or two words.
Others.
Yeah, that others have said.
Yeah, I think it's just
it's horrible.
Way overused. So.
Yeah, that and robust. What's the first thing that you would do if you became invisible?
I would be sneaking onto the Royal Adelaide golf course in a heartbeat.
Oh, you reckon? Yeah?
Yeah.
But your golf clubs aren't invisible.
No. I guess not. But
I'm stirring.
I would be finding
sometimes
to just play some of the best places around.
Yeah.
Yeah, having quiet time. I think in our roles, we're always visible, we're always present.
Yeah.
Sometimes and I enjoy it. I enjoy being active, busy, front and center of a lot of it. But
have you ever played at Royal Adelaide?
I have once, a long time ago.
My parents live right next to it. Just the idea of a train track running through
it is a little weird.
It's strange,
but it's such a good course.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Do you have a useless talent?
I am fantastic at phone games.
Phone games, like a Bejeweled or
Candy
Crush.
Candy Crush. And there's other little logic-based ones. That I used to. Yeah, it serves no purpose.
Yeah.
But sometimes I just sit down and have a mind-numbing session on some phone games, and
I don't mind. I'm a bit of a gamer. I learn a couple of things about you now. You're a singer as well, which is kind of a useless talent.
Well, I'm useless at it. I enjoy it. I'm not very good at it.
My favorite question of the whole podcast is, what's your best dad joke?
I have many that I always tell my kids in the car, and they roll their eyes constantly. But I'll give you the latest one. So, why did the farmer name his horse Mayo?
Why did the farmer name his horse Mayo?
Because Mayo neighs.
That's horrible. It's that bad. I love it. I do like a good mayonnaise as well. Very good. Thank you so much for your time today, Mark. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been a pleasure getting to know you over the years, and obviously chatting to you today. I've learned even more about you that I never knew before, and I want to just put a thank you out there to the work that you and the team at SYC are doing for the community here in South Australia and Australia. It's an amazing business. Get behind it, everyone. I think go and learn a little bit more about it. If you're in need, reach out to them. They're doing some wonderful things, and I really appreciate all the work that you guys are going to continue to do for us in the community abroad. So thanks again.
Stan. Really appreciate that. Thanks for the invite today.
No worries. That's it from us all. We'll catch you next time. Cheers. Thanks for listening to the podcast all. You can check out the show notes if there was anything of interest to you, and find out more about us at SynergyIQ.com.au. I am going to ask though, if you did like the podcast, it would absolutely mean the world to me if you could subscribe, rate and review. And if you didn't like it, that's all right too. There's no need to do anything. Take care, guys. All the best.